This guy is Kataru, the only person still alive in this abandoned city. He doesn't know why, but he has gradually accepted it. Every night, he wanders aimlessly all over the place. One time, Kataru was drawn to a tree behind the mountain. He went there and saw a girl quietly doing something. Curious, he approached and asked her a question. Not only did she not answer, but her voice emitted a strong sound wave that caused temporary deafness in Kataru. It didn't stop there. She then used red ribbons to stab directly into Kataru's heart, killing him. Startled, Kataru woke up and breathed a sigh of relief, realizing it was just a dream. Still, he couldn't stop wondering who that girl was. Could she have been his lover from a past life? His fantasy was interrupted by the doorbell. It was his neighbor Rikako, the mother of his friend Katori. She came to ask Kataru to help look for her daughter, as she hadn't come home yet. Kataru cheerfully accepted and went out to look for Katori. The reason he was so calm was because this wasn't the first time she had gone missing, and he always knew where she hid every time she came home late like this. Following the phone signal, Kataru arrived at a forest near the park. As he walked and called out Katori's name, a strange animal suddenly flew out of a bush. Kataru stared at it, but couldn't figure out what it was, so he just ignored it and kept going deeper into the forest to find Katori. He eventually found her sleeping under a tree in the middle of a lake. He approached and called out to wake her, but she wouldn't wake up, as if she were dead. Kataru then resorted to another method. He took out the one thing anyone would react to: money. He rubbed a few coins together, creating a jingling sound. As expected, even while sleeping, Katori's body reacted to the sound. And just like that, Kataru brought her home. As they arrived, Katori finally woke up with a dazed look on her face, not knowing what had happened. Kataru casually talked to her and told her to go inside the house, because he was well aware of the gap between their rich and poor status. Right after saying goodbye to Katori, Kataru suddenly felt like someone was watching him. Confused and uneasy, he ran home and quickly got under the blanket. In the quiet of night, Kataru's bedroom door suddenly opened, and something slowly slipped into his blanket. Half asleep, Kataru felt something touching and then biting his hand, scaring him so much that he jumped out of bed. He thought he just had a wet dream, but the drool still on his ear freaked him out, so he ended up sleeping on the floor. The next morning, the bite mark was still there. On the way to school, Kataru explained that the city he lived in focused on forest growth experiments. The authorities here were entirely dedicated to environmental concerns, so you could say this city was peaceful. As soon as he entered class, Kataru got a sharp glare like a girl on her period from a classmate named Yoshino. Kataru was confused about why this well-known school delinquent was looking for him. Angry, Yoshino grabbed him, furious that Kataru hadn't shown up at the place they agreed to meet. From Kataru's face, it was clear he didn't remember, so Yoshino was about to punch him to jog his memory. Kataru then strained his brain and finally remembered yesterday. Yoshino had challenged him to a fight on the rooftop. The reason was that Kataru kept bothering him, pulling pranks and annoying him to the point of snapping. Hearing that, Kataru accepted Yoshino's challenge and even said, "Don't go home if we don't meet," before parting ways. Now, having forgotten all of that, Kataru made Yoshino so mad he wanted to send him straight to the hospital. Just then, a girl appeared from outside the classroom to stop them from causing trouble. She was Lucia, the student council president. She wanted to punish them both, but the teacher arrived, stopping her because class was about to start. As she returned to her seat, Lucia kept glaring at Kataru. After the first 3 periods, it was break time, and that's when Katori finally walked into class. Meanwhile, Yoshino invited Kataru to go fight and settle their grudge. But the way he spoke was so funny that Kataru couldn't stop laughing. Having spit fly into his face made Yoshino furious. He was calculating how to punch Kataru in the most satisfying way when Katori joined in the fun. The 3 of them could be considered friends. Katori didn't have many friends, while Yoshino was a delinquent. As for Kataru himself, even though he often chats with his classmates, there's no one he's close to like those 2. At night, Kataru felt like he was experiencing sleep paralysis, but when he pulled back the blanket, it was that same girl from before who had come to bite his hand. The next day at school, he was still thinking about her, lost in thought and not paying attention to where he was going. Kataru tripped over a cardboard box and fell face first to the ground. He still didn't know who left that box there when he noticed a girl stuck in a tree nearby. Kataru approached and asked if she was okay. The girl said she was fine but was currently stuck and couldn't get down. Kataru offered to help, but she was afraid he would see her underwear. Kataru promised not to look and helped her down. Through their conversation, the girl introduced herself as Chihaya, a new transfer student. Her story sounded a bit hard to believe, but apparently, she had been carrying that black cat box up the hill, tripped, and rolled down into this spot. Kataru sympathized with her and offered to help carry the box, but it was absurdly heavy. Yet Chihaya lifted it with ease, not wanting to lose his manly pride. Kataru insisted on helping her carry it, even though his arms and legs were shaking. Chihaya, worried Kataru might die before making it to school, tried to take it back. The two struggled over the box until Kataru lost his grip and caused Chihaya to fall backward. First, Kataru accidentally peeked at her underwear, then quickly apologized. Embarrassed and furious, Chihaya gathered her things, ran off, and called Kataru a pervert. And the world really is smaller than Kataru thought, because Chihaya ended up being placed in the same class as him. Like any typical rom-com, she was even assigned the seat right next to his. As soon as she sat down, Kataru mentioned her underwear incident again, making her want to literally smash a desk over his head. Not only Kataru, but even Yoshino was shocked by her terrifying strength. Kataru tried to salvage the situation by introducing himself. Though Chihaya calmed down, she already had a very poor first impression of him. After the teacher announced the upcoming Harvest Festival next month, Kataru clutched his stomach and rushed to the restroom. Just as he finished and stepped out, he saw a girl trying to blow a whistle at him. Seeing she couldn't blow it properly, he offered to help, but she ran into the bathroom, cleaned the whistle, then blew it at Kataru again, warning him not to run in the hallway. The girl was Shizuru, a member of the disciplinary committee. The two knew each other because Kataru often caused trouble at school. They chatted for a while, and Shizuru punished him by telling him he had to go eat with her on a free day. Kataru agreed and Pinky promised before saying goodbye to her. Just as that was over, another matter came up. Inao from the journalism club came to find him. Being a reckless reporter, she constantly threw difficult questions at Kataru, like whether he got into the school through the back door. But Kataru calmly answered everything to prove he was clean. Unable to get any information, she left, but accidentally dropped a piece of paper. Curious, Kataru looked at it and realized this girl reporter was seriously dangerous. Inside were tons of important notes. Kataru concluded that he had to be careful of Inao to protect his secrets. After school, since Katori had to attend a greening committee meeting, Kataru turned to Chihaya and asked if she wanted to explore the city with him. He offered to show her around as an apology for the underwear incident. Although she appreciated the offer, she declined, saying there was someone she needed to meet. Chihaya later met a mysterious figure who warned her to be careful with her relationships and not to reveal her identity. In the following days, Kataru kept coming to school exhausted, since that mysterious girl kept showing up every night to bite his hand. After hearing Kataru's bizarre story, Katori suggested he see someone Don, a person at school known as a witch. Rumor had it she could use real magic and might be able to help him. Hearing that, Kataru pulled out the paper he got from the reckless reporter Inao, and sure enough, it mentioned a witch named Senri from the occult club. Curious, Kataru invited Katori to go look for her, and she happily agreed. After school, Kataru asked Yoshino to come along to avoid being seen as a couple, but Yoshino refused, so only the two of them went. Since they had no leads, they started by asking around the school. Even though they ran all over the place, they couldn't find anything. At that moment, an information broker approached Kataru after hearing that he was looking for the witch. His name was Suzuki, and he came to give Kataru a notebook about the occult club. Thinking this was incredibly helpful, Kataru gratefully hugged Suzuki. Using the notebook as a guide, the two of them found a house in the forest. Inside, Kataru discovered a room that looked very modern. After checking the surroundings, he confirmed that this was the occult club's base. Before leaving, he left behind a note. That night, the mysterious girl showed up again. Panicking, Kataru ran around frantically looking for a way to escape, but neither the front door nor the windows would open. He grabbed a baseball bat and started smashing it against the window, but there was a barrier preventing it from breaking. Then, the girl slowly emerged from under his blanket. Terrified, Kataru banged on the door while calling out Katori's name for help. The moment he said Katori's name, the mysterious girl suddenly disappeared, and Kataru's soul almost left his body along with her. The next day, Kataru returned to the occult club. His message had been answered with blood written on the desk were the words, "In 2 days, you will die." Kataru was pretty shocked by this, but then his eyes caught a survey sheet. Everything looked normal until he read one particular question. If you had power, would you change the world or change yourself? After reading it, Kataru fell into deep thought. The school bell rang, signaling the end of the day. On his way home, Chihaya ran up to Kataru. Though they had only known each other for a few days, she already called him by name so casually, which surprised him. Just as Chihaya was about to say something, Katori passed by. Lately, she'd been busy with a greening committee. Kataru took the opportunity to introduce Chihaya to her, and the two girls quickly became familiar with each other. Since she was in a hurry, Katori asked Kataru to show Chihaya around the city. That seemed to be what Chihaya had wanted to ask him too, so she looked very happy. Before leaving, Katori even teased the two by calling each other by pet names. Then, on his rattling little bicycle, Kataru took Chihaya on a ride. They passed through narrow alleys and winding streets, the sunset casting golden light over the rice fields. Kataru brought Chihaya to a very special place, the headquarters of Martel, the world's most famous environmental organization. After finishing their tour, Kataru gave the bike to Chihaya and told her they'd meet again at school tomorrow. That night, Kataru returned to the school, following a mysterious message from the academy's witch that he received earlier in the afternoon. He went to the classroom she specified, but every time he entered, it led to another classroom instead. The loop continued until it brought him to the library. Tired, Kataru rested near the school's vending machine and bought a can of coffee. Suddenly, that chilling sensation crept up his spine again. The sound of footsteps echoed from the staircase toward him. The mysterious girl appeared once again. As Kataru looked at her, a flood of strange memories came rushing in, memories of being killed by this girl over and over. Panicked, he ran, but she stayed close behind him. The school hallway stretched on endlessly, and the classroom doors wouldn't open. Desperate, Kataru collapsed in defeat. Suddenly, one classroom door slid open. Thinking he'd been saved, he ran toward it only for a bunch of strange creatures to come pouring out, chasing after him. He ran and ran, eventually shaking them off at a stairwell. Looking down, the stairwell seemed just as endless as the hallway. Exhausted, Kataru sat down and took a sip of his coffee, but just as he opened the can, the mysterious girl appeared again. Panicking, Kataru took off running again, dropping the coffee, which ended up in the girl's hand. She took a sip. Meanwhile, Kataru reached a large door. Inside was yet another endless corridor. Voices echoed around him, demanding that he return something, but he didn't know what. He tried using acceleration to escape, but then suddenly cancelled the skill and threw a punch at a lurking figure. It was something that resembled a goblin. The creature unexpectedly said it wanted to suck his blood. Then another being appeared and stopped it. After scolding its friend, the pink creature introduced itself as Panny, and the green one was Gil. Gil kept begging to drink Kataru's blood. Feeling sorry for him, Kataru gave him a little. Then he followed the two of them somewhere unknown. Kataru also learned that these creatures were called trash beings. Suddenly, a loud noise echoed, and when he looked around, Kataru saw a giant monster sleeping nearby. The three of them needed to quietly get out of there, but while flying, Gil suddenly sneezed and woke the monster up. The three of them quickly fled, but the monster only needed one leap to block their path. Just when they didn't know what to do, the mysterious girl appeared, holding the can of coffee. The monster swung one of its tentacles at them, and Kataru used acceleration to pull the girl out of the way, accidentally knocking over the coffee can. Enraged, the girl used her red ribbons to slice off one of the monster's tentacles, then continued whipping its head repeatedly. In pain, the monster switched to laser mode, but the girl firmly used a magic circle to deflect the laser and kept attacking. Eventually, she used a devastating move to blow up and destroy the monster. Kataru, affected by the aftermath of the battle, fell into a crack and mysteriously returned to the school. Right in front of him was a statue with a note in its hand, telling him to bring it to the occult club. There, he finally met the academy's witch. Without beating around the bush, she introduced herself as Senri, the third-year witch from the rumors. Instead of being surprised that she really existed, Kataru was stunned by her beauty under the moonlight. A moment later, he recounted everything that had happened. Senri didn't seem to believe him and just kept playing her game. Getting serious, she asked Kataru the same question. Would he rather change the world or himself? Kataru gave an off-topic answer. Yes. He asked her to be serious and help him deal with the mysterious girl who kept biting his hand. She then handed him a charm to exorcise spirits. But it turned out she was a troll-type witch, first giving him a paperclip and calling it a charm just to tease him. Only after annoying him did she finally hand him the real thing. Since she needed to know whether it actually worked, the two of them scheduled a follow-up meeting. Senri also invited Kataru to join the occult club. That night, in a hazy dream among the clouds, Kataru met a girl who introduced herself as Tomoko, the guardian charm drawn by Senri. She would be there to protect him. Though extremely powerful, she promised to help Kataru sleep peacefully. She even invited him on a date if she managed to survive. Then the mysterious girl came again, and this time, the charm flew straight into her mouth. But she just spat it out, then crawled back into Kataru's blanket. However, the charm began to take effect, making the girl uncomfortable enough to leave. The next morning, Kataru cried over Tomoko's departure. He went to school and looked for the supply room door that had led him to the other world the night before, but this time nothing happened. He went to class and told Katori about everything he had experienced: talking creatures, giant monsters, and just like Senri, Katori told him to lay off the drugs. When Chiya entered the class, he told her about the incident too. During the break at the cafeteria, Kataru stood at the free coffee counter, complaining about how bad the coffee was and how upset he was that everyone thought he was on drugs. He felt he had to do something. Then he spotted his close friend Yoshino and decided to mess with him. He offered Yoshino a strawberry ice cream cone with hot sauce on it. After being pranked so many times, Yoshino already knew this trick. The two of them kept tossing the cone back and forth until it was swapped with someone else's ice cream. Unluckily, that someone was Lucia. But even after eating it, she seemed totally fine. Worried she might suffer some delayed reaction, Kataru grabbed the cone and ate the whole thing himself. Lucia got furious that Kataru had shamelessly put his mouth on the same spoon she used. It was like an indirect kiss, so she punched him hard enough to send him flying. Clutching his face in pain, Kataru went outside to cool off. There, he happened to see Shizuru napping under a tree. He sat down next to her to rest for a bit. When class was about to start, the alarm woke them both up. Shizuru was surprised to see Kataru, and they chatted for a moment before saying goodbye. That afternoon, Kataru went to see Senri again. She was surprised that the charm had actually worked, then casually tossed Tomoko into the trash, which made Kataru really regretful. Seeing how indifferent she was, he asked if she didn't believe in the occult. She confirmed that she didn't. She hated people who believed in the supernatural. Kataru then asked why she even founded the occult club. She said she only took over the occult club, which was on the verge of being disbanded, just because she wanted this room. Hearing that, Kataru invited her to play a game he would prove that the supernatural was real. If nothing happened, he would admit he was on drugs, but if it was real, he wanted her to grant his request. When she asked what it was, Kataru smirked and said he wanted to touch her chest. She immediately called the police, and Kataru had to frantically slam the machine to stop her. In the end, she agreed to his game. That night, the mysterious girl came to Kataru's room again. This time, she was prepared for Tomoko's attack. With no one interfering anymore, she began crawling into Kataru's blanket, but Kataru let out a fart, forcing her to leave in a hurry. The next day, Kataru brought Katori to see Senri. He asked her to help them prove supernatural phenomena were real, and besides, Senri looked rich and powerful, so getting close to her could benefit Katori. Hearing that, Katori agreed. The two of them created a website for the occult club, and just as they finished, Chihaya unexpectedly showed up. It turned out she had some acquaintance with Senri. That night, Kataru had a wet dream about Senri's melons. When he reached out to touch them in the dream, his hand landed on the mysterious girl. Since the Tomoko charms had run out, she easily slipped into his room. Being unexpectedly groped made her a little flustered, and she left. The next morning, Kataru asked Senri for more Tomoko charms, and she just pointed to the trash can for him to dig through. As soon as he stepped outside, he ran into the reckless reporter Jainao. She came after hearing Kataru had joined the occult club and about his game with Senri. Coincidentally, she was also trying to prove supernatural events were real. Jainao challenged Kataru to a race to see who could find proof first, then left. Kataru then brought Shizuru to the occult club to help out. She quickly got along with the older girls. Senri started getting annoyed with the chaotic group Kotaru had assembled. Suddenly, Shizuru's phone rang. It was someone from the discipline committee. Kotaru couldn't help but whisper into her ear, and she repeated exactly what he said, that she loved Kotaru and would follow him forever. Kotaru didn't even get the chance to say he was joking before the call ended. Unfortunately, the caller was Lucia, who immediately rushed to the occult club and punched Kotaru. After the punch, Shizuru explained it was just a joke, a very costly one. Shizuru then explained that she had joined to help Kotaru research and prove the supernatural was real. Hearing that, Lucia joined too to protect Shizuru from a pervert like Kotaru. As Kotaru watched everyone chatting together, a thought came to mind: I want to become someone. He had always been alone before. He wanted to change his boring life and believed that everyone here could help him do that. And thus, the occult club began its activities. Outside, the mysterious girl continued watching Kotaru. She felt something, then clutched her heart. In the days that followed, Kotaru woke up feeling very refreshed thanks to the number of Tomoko charms given to him by the president. The mysterious girl no longer appeared. At school, Katori, representing the Greening Committee, announced the upcoming Harvest Festival. Even though she stumbled through her speech, she managed to finish it. After the meeting, Kotaru invited his close friend Yoshino to join the festival, only to be bluntly rejected. Disappointed, Kotaru went to the occult club to check the website and see if anyone had posted anything. There, he met a stranger who immediately invited him outside. Moments later, Senri stepped out from the bath. Apparently, she had an intense battle the night before and was still a bit tired. Kotaru wanted to ask who this man was, but before Senri could answer, Chihaya entered. When the man saw her, his attitude instantly changed. He brought her the lunch she had forgotten. Being polite, Kotaru introduced himself and asked for the man's name. He introduced himself as Sakuya and said he was Chihaya's brother. But Chihaya stopped him from saying that. Senri told her she didn't need to hide anything. Sakuya explained that for certain reasons, he was responsible for taking care of Chihaya. Since the two siblings had the same last name, Kotaru found it hard to call them casually. Senri told him to just call Chihaya by her name for simplicity, but the moment her name slipped from his mouth, Sakuya, her sister Kan of a brother, warned him not to call her that. The school bell rang, temporarily putting that issue aside. As they left, Kotaru, being his usual teasing self, slowly repeated Chihaya's name to provoke her brother, who then declared that he would never like Kotaru. Back in class, Kotaru was still thinking about Chihaya's strange brother when the tapping sound of chalk snapped him back to reality. Lucia, the student council president, was working on her assignment. Curious, Kotaru asked Yoshino why Lucia always wore gloves. Yoshino guessed maybe she just didn't like touching dirty things, but Kotaru disagreed, saying someone like that wouldn't be fit to be student council president. Instead, he theorized that her gloves were actually sealing away some powerful dark force. Yoshino, surprisingly, believed him and started playing along. Both of them got scolded by the teacher for disrupting the class. After school at the occult club, Kotaru was excited to see someone had posted on their website. Everyone else was excited too, but more about hanging out and eating than about Kotaru's ghost stories. When they finally got serious, they read a post about a student spotting a creature called Tsuchinoko. The group started guessing what it looked like or whether it was edible. Senri said it was basically a fat snake. Hard to believe, but Kotaru had experienced enough to think it was real. If he could find it, then Senri's boobs would be his. The club then split up to search for the Tsuchinoko in the school garden. While rummaging through a bush, Kotaru felt something soft and round. Thinking it was the fat snake, he pulled it out only to discover it was Lucia's butt. Naturally, a beatdown followed. At that moment, an actual fat snake appeared. Kotaru charged at it, but Chihaya effortlessly caught it with her strength only for it to be dragged away. Not giving up, Chihaya pulled back and revealed a strange woman trying to reel the snake in. Calmly, the woman introduced herself as a part-time salesperson and part-time exotic creature hunter. Though she was technically a hunter, her main job was sales. She just did this on the side to fund her luxury shopping and travel. She had taken the Tsuchinoko job because someone had posted a request on the occult club website. After saying her piece, she ran off to work. Since lunch break was almost over, the group disbanded. Luckily, Kotaru still managed to buy a bun to snack on. He spotted Shizuru also getting ready to eat outside. Remembering his promise, Kotaru went to eat lunch with her. During their meal, Kotaru noticed Shizuru's eye patch and asked if she had some sort of illness. Shizuru hesitated, but said she'd tell him her secret only if he promised not to tell anyone. When he agreed, she removed her patch to reveal heterochromatic eyes. It seemed she wore the patch because she didn't want people staring at her. Kotaru complimented her, saying her eyes were beautiful, making her blush. After lunch, Kotaru grabbed a canned coffee and littered, prompting Lucia to suddenly appear and make him sort all the trash. Not only that he had to rinse every can before sorting them. After a long cleaning session, Kotaru lay on the grass, exhausted. Lucia told him it was punishment for groping her before, then gave him a passionate lecture about environmental protection. Only after she finished did she realize she had gone too far. With his usual cheeky tone, Kotaru started praising her as an amazing person like no other. He kept flattering her until Lucia got flustered and punched him across the sky. Kotaru had to rest in the infirmary until evening before dragging his body home. While wandering around, he saw the mysterious girl being chased by something. Wanting to confirm a few things, Kotaru used his acceleration ability and gave chase. He leapt across rooftops to follow her. In reality, his power was rewriting his own abilities. For instance, acceleration was actually him rewriting his body structure to enhance his physical muscles. But the downside was once enhanced, his body couldn't revert, making it hard to keep his powers hidden. Still, without upgrading, he couldn't catch her. He soon lost sight of both her and whatever was chasing her. In the still silence, a stranger suddenly appeared behind Kotaru. Mistaking him for a hunter, the man summoned a wolf to attack. Unable to fight back, Kotaru relied on his God-given legs and ran for his life, diving into a train tunnel to escape. Barely able to catch his breath, the wolf quickly found him. He kept running, climbing through a hole that led to a mountain. The wolf caught up and lunged at him. In a daze, Kotaru thought he was going to die, but the wolf was suddenly slain by someone. When he came to, Kotaru found himself with two men at a roadside diner. They said they had found him in a park. When he mentioned the monster, they responded calmly and started asking questions. One of them, a gentleman who introduced himself as Isaka, explained that a few unidentified monsters had been showing up in this green city lately, so perhaps what Kotaru saw was one of them. As he chatted with the two, Kotaru almost forgot about the terrifying chase earlier. Driven by his desire to fondle Senri's boobs, he asked more about these strange creatures. Isaka told him if he was curious, he could visit his antique shop in the city. Suddenly, Shizuru appeared from behind. She hadn't noticed Kotaru until he greeted her. Turns out she was a regular at this place. A while later, he told her about everything that had just happened and showed her the scratch on his arm. Oddly, she couldn't see anything. When he looked again, the wound was gone. Confused and in disbelief, Kotaru couldn't accept it because his powers were supposed to be permanently engraved into his body. Soon, a few more guests arrived. They looked like civil servants but not quite. After finishing their meal, Kotaru walked Shizuru home. On his way back, he thought about how tough her life might be and wondered what he could do to help her. From behind, Sakuya showed up. He'd just bought ice cream for Chihaya. After mocking Kotaru a bit, he declared that Kotaru was now his enemy. The next day at noon, Kotaru had lunch with Shizuru again, then rushed to the occult club to tell Senri that he'd found someone who knew a lot about mysterious phenomena. He dragged the group to yesterday's park where the ramen stall had been, but it was gone. Confused, he called Shizuru to ask since she was a regular there, but she didn't pick up. Lucia tried too, but got nothing. Everyone else gave up and left, leaving Kotaru to search on his own. He headed to an autonomous district looking for the antique shop. While looking around, he bumped into a red-haired man who seemed surprised to see him. When he heard Kotaru's name, the man asked if he was really living like a normal person now. Seeing Kotaru's confused expression, the man warned him to watch out for some shady punks that had recently popped up. After parting ways, Kotaru wandered into an alley and, sure enough, ran into the exact group the red-haired guy had mentioned. They noticed from his uniform that he went to the same school as Yoshino. When Kotaru mentioned his best friend, they got wary because he dared to call Yoshino by name. Apparently, in this autonomous district, Yoshino was a legend who took down 100 guys on his own, a total badass. They called Yoshino to confirm if Kotaru was really a friend. After the call, their attitude completely changed and they treated him with respect. With their help, Kataru finally reached the antique shop. Inside, he reunited with Asaka, and Shizuru was there too. He sat down and asked why she didn't answer her phone. Turns out she had turned it off to save battery. Asaka noticed how close the two seemed, more like friends than upperclassmen and underclassmen. Kataru told the story of how he first met Shizuru. She had gotten lost on her way to the discipline committee, and he helped her find the way. Thanks to his teasing nature, they quickly became friends. After that, they got back to the main topic. Kataru wanted to know more about the creatures that Asaka and the ramen guy had seen. Asaka showed him some pictures he had taken, but they were too blurry and didn't resemble the two creatures Kataru had previously encountered. Still, even if it was disappointing, it was something. In the evening, the two said goodbye and headed home. Kataru also got to keep a few photos, and Asaka gave him a business card so he could visit anytime. On their way back, the two chatted, and Shizuru was genuinely happy that Kataru had found the motivation to pursue something, even if it was all because of Senri's luscious melons. At least he had changed a lot from who he was before. Before heading home, Shizuru stopped by a bakery to ask for leftover breadcrumbs that would be her food for the next few days. A few steps later, she also dropped by a thrift store. The next day, Kataru tossed a photo to Senri, but it still wasn't enough to convince her to pause her Valorant match and listen. Meanwhile, Shizuru pulled out a CD she had bought the day before. She wanted to listen to a song but didn't have a player, so she asked Kataru for help. At home, Kataru brought out his old music player, the one he used to listen to whenever his parents scolded him for being disobedient. He decided to give it to Shizuru, and the girl happily promised to treasure it. In the days that followed, Kataru's nights remained peaceful, no longer disturbed by the mysterious girl. However, he couldn't shake the unease about that night. Why was she running? And who was that man? Whoever he was dangerous. Kataru sighed, thinking the peaceful days he expected were never really meant for him. Suddenly, the classroom door slid open. It was the mysterious girl, but only Kataru could see her. Everyone else was puzzled, wondering why the door opened on its own. She walked up and bit Kataru's hand, causing him to let out some strange noises that gave Yoshino goosebumps. After feeding, the girl simply left, taking his saliva-covered hand with her. Kataru rushed off to find Senri, but instead ran into Shizuru, who was happily enjoying the music player. Coincidentally, she had something to tell him, and since Kataru prioritized lolis over busty older sisters, he went with Shizuru. Because he had given her the player, she had something she wanted to show him. She took him to meet a teacher named Nishi, who drove them to a nearby hill. Before leaving, she told Kataru to believe what Shizuru was about to reveal. The girl then led him to a house, and without a word, they sat there waiting. They waited until late afternoon, and eventually, a couple returned home. They asked why the two were there, but instead of answering, Shizuru simply complimented their flower garden and pulled Kataru away just as the couple's child came outside. Curious, Kataru asked who they were, and the girl told him they were her family. Hearing that stunned Kataru because they didn't even recognize her. Then, Shizuru suddenly stopped, poked his nose, and asked for her name. To his horror, Kataru couldn't remember it. Shizuru explained it was because of her ability, but somehow, Kataru managed to force the name Shizuru out, making her smile with joy. She then revealed how, when she first discovered her power, she couldn't control it and accidentally caused her parents and younger sister to forget her. She explained that her family used to be happy together. Though they weren't wealthy, they had fun. Her favorite memories were grilling fish with her parents, going on outings, and gardening. That happiness didn't last. One fateful day, a creature attacked their home. She was injured in one eye, and her father was stabbed in the back by debris while protecting his wife and daughter. Amid the chaos, a special task force appeared, eliminated the threat, and evacuated them. After that, Shizuru's power began to manifest, and her life steadily fell apart. Because of her heterochromia, she was bullied at school. Her family could no longer grill fish because her mother had developed a phobia of fire after the attack. Then, when her ability was discovered, a man came offering a large sum of money to transfer her into their organization. She agreed and visited home every weekend. But the money caused friction between her parents. Though she tried to stop their arguments, she failed. Believing it was all her fault, she wished for things to go back to how they were, and that wish triggered her power. From then on, her family no longer remembered her. Hearing all this, Kataru felt a deep sadness for the girl who had endured so much pain. He asked why he could still remember her, and she replied it was because she had learned to control her ability. They returned as night fell. On the way back, Kataru asked Nishi if she was also part of the organization. Though she didn't answer directly, she gave a subtle nod that confirmed it. Prying further, Kataru asked if powers were something people were born with. Nishi gave a vague response about the organization, believing that power is born from drugs. Kataru recalled the moment when Shizuru looked at his wounded hand. Perhaps that was when it all started. Nishi didn't let him ask further questions, saying knowing too many secrets wouldn't do him any good. She revealed that Shizuru actually had a large sum of money, but the girl lived very frugally, possibly because she wanted to buy a house, something her father once dreamed of giving to their family. Hearing that made Kataru even more curious about the small girl. He was then driven back home. The next day, Kataru found himself in a difficult situation when Lucia refused to return a baseball that had accidentally landed in the flower bed. Their argument was loud enough that the rest of the club came over. Kataru quickly returned the ball to the baseball team. Chihaya criticized Lucia for being overly obsessed with cleanliness. Just throwing the ball back wouldn't make her dirty. Lucia snapped back, saying she didn't do anything wrong and didn't deserve to be scolded. She clarified it wasn't the ball she didn't want to touch, it was the flowers. Then she shouted, pushed Chihaya to the ground, and ran off. Kataru chased after her and was met with Lucia's tear-streaked face. Even she didn't want to be like this. That summer, there was a girl who awakened a strange power. Everything she touched turned to ash. Back to the present, thanks to the request box Shizuru had set up. The club received a new mystery. Kataru read the letter to the group. It was about Asahi Haruka. At an orphanage, strange events started occurring after Asahi arrived. Windows broke on their own, pets died, followed by teachers and children, and eventually the orphanage shut down. The letter continued, saying that 7 years ago, a boy from that orphanage transferred to elementary school No. 7, the same school as the letter's author. A few days later, the boy told the writer about Asahi, and not long after, he died from a serious illness. Some believe it was a curse for disturbing Asahi's sleep. His name was Kishida. Kataru figured if this happened 7 years ago, Kishida would have been their age, and he remembered that his best friend Yoshino also went to elementary No. 7. He decided to call and ask him. Meanwhile, Kataru checked in on the tension between Chihaya and Lucia. They were still mad at each other. After club activities, Kataru thought resolving the girls' conflict should come first. Seeing Shizuru in the courtyard, he approached her and told her what had happened. Shizuru stayed quiet for a moment, then asked if Kataru wanted to know Lucia's secret. She would tell him, but only on the condition that he remained Lucia's friend until death. That heavy question left Kataru deep in thought until late afternoon. For now, he put the matter aside and called Yoshino. At that moment, Yoshino was helping an elderly lady cross the street. When Kataru mentioned the names Kishida and Asahi, Yoshino refused to say anything, not wanting to disturb the dead. He warned Kataru to be careful if he insisted on digging further. If he heard glass shatter, he should run for his life. The next day at school, Yoshino gave Kataru an old contact list, saying it might help. Kataru then secretly followed Lucia to the copy room and asked her to help duplicate the list. He did it quickly and slipped away, but Lucia chased after him to return a paper he'd left behind. Strangely, Kataru didn't remember printing it. A line appeared on it, "Don't wake me up." The moment he read it, a sealed window cracked and shattered. Lucia suspected Kataru was up to his usual tricks. To avoid being misunderstood, Kataru told her the full story about Asahi. After hearing it, Lucia began to believe that the cracked glass might really have been Asahi's doing. However, Kataru didn't think she was evil. He believed Asahi might be carrying some deep sorrow and wanted to prove she wasn't malicious. He asked Lucia to help him clear the girl's name. Their handshake surprised Lucia. She hadn't done that with anyone in a long time. On the way home, it started raining. Lucia opened her umbrella, and just then, a loud explosion went off. The streetlight in front of her burst, and beneath it stood Asahi. Seeing her triggered a painful memory in Lucia, making her scream and clutch her face. Meanwhile, Kataru was being berated by former victims of Asahi over the phone for asking about her. Some even said the curse wasn't over yet. Every lead seemed to end in a dead end. At this point, Kataru had no choice but to rely on Lucia. because he had already asked her to contact the girls listed in the directory. The next day, Lucia didn't show up at school. Kataru tried contacting her but couldn't reach her. Just then, the nosy reporter Jouno appeared. She came after hearing that Kataru was involved in something strange. She handed him a report she had written about Asahi. Jouno claimed she had no ill intent. She simply wanted to help others who were also chasing supernatural phenomena. She then told Kataru he owed her one and left. Kataru opened the report and read through it. Based on the information inside, he tracked down someone who had also claimed to encounter Asahi. The man played a recording of breaking windows and told a few strange stories, but it turned out he had exaggerated everything for effect. Nothing had actually happened to him. Disappointed, Kataru returned home in the rain. The only useful thing he learned was that the orphanage where Asahi had stayed was called Santa Brogia Peace Garden. On the way home, Kataru suddenly felt a chill down his spine as if someone was holding his hand. A voice whispered, "Don't wake me up." Startled, he quickly pulled away. Looking closely, it was Lucia. She fainted after repeating those same words. When she regained consciousness, she was at Kataru's house. He explained that he had undressed her to prevent her from catching a cold. Lucia thanked him, then walked over to a potted plant. She plucked a leaf, and it instantly crumbled to ash. This, she said, was the power of Asahi's curse. Kataru panicked, thinking that his investigation had brought the curse upon her. He remembered what Shizuru had said, that Lucia had once been in an accident as a child, and afterward, animals and plants would wither and die around her. Though it had been unintentional, Lucia had always blamed herself, and since then, she had believed her hands were filthy. She became afraid to touch any living being. The only thing that helped her was a pair of gloves. She thought as long as she wore them, no one would be harmed, but reality didn't change. She truly believed she was dirty. Kataru tried to comfort her, but she pushed him away. During the struggle, some of her power unintentionally touched Kataru's arm. After taking Lucia home, Kataru visited the orphanage, which was now restricted due to high-level toxic waste. Ignoring the warning, he went inside, unaware that he was being watched by security cameras. He entered the church, where he found several old photos from 7 years ago, including pictures of Kashida and finally Asahi. But the moment he looked at her picture, it shattered. Kataru turned and said, "It's nice to see you again, Asahi, or rather, Lucia." He had already figured it out. It was thanks to the contact list. One name, Waka, had moved, so the address was outdated. Yet when Kataru called that number, the curse still activated there. The only people who had access to that list were his best friend Yoshino, himself, and the person he deliberately allowed to see it, Lucia. Lucia admitted that she had broken the glass and tried to warn Kataru to stop investigating, but his obsession with Senri's chest was just too strong. Kataru said he just wanted to know the truth. Lucia revealed her power. Her hands could emit a toxin capable of shattering glass and even killing people without contact. She had tried to stop everyone from digging further to prevent her shameful past from being exposed. The whole surrounding area was covered in the poison she released. As Lucia spoke, Kataru began to collapse. He had been poisoned when her power accidentally touched him earlier. Lucia panicked and apologized, but Kataru was the one who said sorry. If he had been stronger, she wouldn't have had to suffer so much. To avoid dying from the toxin, Kataru rewrote the structure of his own cells, making his body resistant to Lucia's poison. A few moments later, he recovered completely, leaving Lucia stunned. He didn't explain his power, but simply took her hand and declared that he would be her friend. So she shouldn't be sad or run away anymore, otherwise, she'd end up alone forever. And besides, she wasn't alone, she still had the occult club with her. Every word from him reached her heart. Lucia broke down in tears and hugged Kataru tightly, sobbing as she finally released all the sorrow she had bottled up for so long. Just outside, a team of people in orange suits rushed in. Lucia told Kataru not to worry, this was her team. The leader then appeared. It was Miss Nishi. Afterward, Miss Nishi took Kataru to the hospital for a checkup. Ignoring the fact that he was somehow immune to Lucia's power, Kataru needed to know the truth about Nishi and the organization behind her. She revealed the name, Guardian, a group that gathers individuals with superpowers for one purpose, to protect the Earth. Right now, the Green City was in danger, because someone was in possession of a key, a being whose existence could determine the fate of the world. Guardian referred to this being as the Key. Its presence had deep implications, even affecting people's faith and belief systems. However, another radical group called Gaia was targeting the key. Unlike Guardian, Gaia aimed to return the planet to its original state using the key. Nishi stopped there, warning Kataru to keep everything secret. If he didn't, he might vanish from the Earth altogether. Kataru agreed on one condition: Lucia must make him a bento. Embarrassed, Lucia scolded him, while Nishi left the two alone. Only a few days later, Kataru had fully recovered and returned to school. One day, after exiting the restroom and still wondering what to have for lunch, he was suddenly attacked from behind and knocked unconscious. When he woke up, everything was pitch black, his eyes were blindfolded, and his limbs tightly bound. He struggled until a familiar voice Lucia's gently told him to calm down. But before releasing him, she asked Kataru to promise something. Though he didn't understand the situation at all, Kataru agreed. Lucia then removed the blindfold and untied him, and he was stunned speechless. Lucia was dressed in a maid outfit, holding a lunch tray she had made herself. Kataru was frozen in shock. He had only joked about it days ago, yet she actually took it seriously. Blushing fiercely, Lucia turned her face away. Kataru reassured her with soft compliments praising the outfit and her hard work. But the more he spoke, the more embarrassed Lucia became, until she couldn't take it anymore and smacked him out of flustered frustration. They sat down and ate lunch together. Kataru praised her cooking, and Lucia breathed a sigh of relief. She had poured her whole heart into it with help from Shizuru, because Lucia herself couldn't taste anything due to her body's toxicity. Shizuru had made a special medicine so she could help, and the two became close. At school and in Guardian, Shizuru was Lucia's only real friend. Hearing that, Kataru corrected her, reminding Lucia she also had him and the rest of the occult club. Lucia hesitated, still feeling awkward because of her past conflict with Chihaya. Kataru held her hand and told her things would be okay, he'd be with her. After lunch, Lucia visited the clubroom to apologize to Chihaya, who, coincidentally, had been planning to do the same. Both girls bowed their heads, asking forgiveness. In the end, they made peace. But Chihaya couldn't help asking why Lucia kept clinging to Kataru. Lucia proudly answered that he was her friend. Maybe after being alone for so long, she no longer knew how to maintain proper distance. Seeing this, Shizuru also clung to Kataru, staking her claim, but Lucia clearly had the upper hand in certain areas. With that, Kataru officially announced, the occult club was back in action. Today's mystery: a legendary sword said to be stuck somewhere in the Green City, only a true hero could pull it out. With just that bit of info, they set off to investigate. The club went to a candy store where the sword had been stuck for 10 years with no one able to pull it free. Suddenly, Yoshino appeared claiming that he had trained for that very sword for 10 years. But all that training was effortlessly defeated by Chihaya's brute strength, who yanked the sword out in seconds. Even more shocking, the sword broke instantly. Mystery solved. Next, they tackled a strange noise reported from an abandoned house. Entering cautiously, they found nothing strange until Chihaya tripped, prompting Kataru to rush over. In the process, he accidentally uncovered a stash of indecent books. Chihaya screamed and socked him in the face. By chance, Kataru fell into a box containing a stuffed animal that played music, explaining the eerie sound. Mystery number 2, solved. The third story was about a boogeyman screaming in the school at midnight. The whole group snuck past the tabloid girl Jainao and went to investigate the source of the sound, only to find it was just Kataru's friend who always trained in the classroom late at night. With that, the third mystery was solved. A few days later, Kataru discovered some new clues in the forest. To outsiders, it looked like a group picnic, and Sakuya promised to prepare food for everyone except Kataru. While Senri thought this was unreliable, she trusted Kataru instead. He asked if anyone wanted to join, but no one seemed interested except Shizuru. Lucia said the girl didn't need to go just to please Kataru, and Shizuru replied she wasn't going just for that. So Kataru decided the club would all go together that weekend. On Saturday, Kataru rushed to the meeting point. He was the only one who showed up late. Everyone was excited, especially about Katori bringing her guard dog, which turned out to be the strange hedgehog-like creature from before. Katori had taken it in and named it Moth. Though it clearly didn't look like a dog, everyone insisted it did. To prove its strength, Moth spun around and sent Kataru flying. The group then entered the forest. Moth quickly located a nearby river. Checking the map, Kotaru suggested they cut through the woods and follow the river downstream. Kotori wanted to try drinking the water, but everyone warned against it unless boiled. However, Shizuru drank it and confirmed it was clean. As they went deeper into the woods, the air became harder to breathe. Shizuru spotted a two-headed creature and ran after it, followed by Lucia. Moth also picked up a scent and led the others forward. They were shocked to discover a strange toxic dump. Lucia and Shizuru rushed back to warn everyone not to go any further, as the substance seemed potentially deadly. It could very well be the source of environmental pollution. Shizuru pulled out the two-headed rat she had caught earlier. It had been alive, but upon contact with the waste, it died, proving the strange creatures were likely mutations caused by this pollution. Kotaru hesitated, unsure if he should report this in his investigation. After they buried the rat, the group began heading back. Along the way, Kotaru noticed a strangely familiar tree. Suddenly, the mysterious girl appeared again. Kotaru immediately gave chase and managed to catch up to her. She was holding a wooden snake. Suddenly, a wave of strange memories surged through Kotaru, being embraced by a girl as he died, being killed by a mysterious white-haired girl. It all felt unnervingly real. Breathing heavily in panic, he was soon found by the girls, but the mysterious one was gone. Kotaru said nothing, and they all returned. That night, Kotaru wandered to the occult club room and found Senri still there. Unable to sleep, he'd gone there to write his report. Although he wrote it, he decided not to publish it. They discussed the damage humans had done to the environment. Senri stated that one day the Earth might reach a point of no return if this destruction continued. But Kotaru still believed the Earth could survive, because there are always people fighting to protect it. When asked for a solution to environmental pollution, Kotaru said it should be the factories that are removed. Senri replied there was an easier way: remove the ones causing the problem, humans. The next day, which was Sunday, Kotaru lay in bed still thinking about his conversation with Senri. Just then, Jainao called. The tabloid girl had caught wind of the group's trip into the woods and the toxic site. Coincidentally, she had once investigated that area. She said she had important information that might help Kotaru, and she'd give it to him after checking the toxic lake herself that day. But a few days later, one of Jainao's friends came to say she had gone missing. A search team was dispatched, but they only found her backpack. 5 days passed since her disappearance, with no sign of life or death. At the occult club, Kotaru received shocking news. The school had decided to disband their club, likely due to the incident involving Jainao. Shizuru felt deeply sorry for her, saying Jainao was a kind person who always gave her candy in exchange for information about Kotaru. Back to the matter of the occult club being disbanded, Senri only agreed to temporarily suspend activities for a while because of that tabloid girl. In the past, Jainao had always gone around spreading the idea that she was challenging Kotaru, and Kotaru was also the last person to speak with her. All consequences stemmed from Jainao's poor decisions, and her disappearance was the result, but people always need someone to blame, and Kotaru had been chosen to take the fall. Senri had already foreseen that disbandment would be inevitable. If they resisted, the school would simply begin targeting them one by one. Kotaru refused to accept bearing the consequences of something he didn't do. He tried to convince everyone to protect this place because of all the memories they had made there, and because it had taken him a long time to find somewhere he truly belonged. He didn't want to lose it. His speech touched everyone's hearts, and they decided they wouldn't give up. Senri said that if they could just find Jainao, there might still be a way to save the club. The current search party had already given up, assuming Jainao was dead, and the school was just waiting for the right moment to announce her status and shut the club down, so they had to act fast to find her. The group gathered their gear and headed deep into the forest to search for any signs of Jainao. After a while, Shizuru spotted what looked like a possible trace of her. It didn't seem like much, but they continued following it. However, after a certain distance, the trail began to fade. Shizuru analyzed the pattern and guessed that Jainao had tried to cover her tracks, raising the question of who she was trying to hide from. Everyone began tossing out theories. Eventually, Senri grew tired and said she needed to use the bathroom, and the other girls followed her, leaving Kotaru alone to wait. Minutes passed, 30 of them, but no one came back. Worried they had gotten lost, Kotaru went searching for them, and along the way spotted a mysterious man. Suspicious, Kataru followed him, but lost him in a thicket. Then, a pack of wolves like before suddenly surrounded and attacked him. Desperate to survive, Kataru punched the leader wolf and made a break for it. Despite rewriting his body to improve physical strength, he couldn't outrun them and was quickly caught, pinned, and bitten. In despair and on the brink of death, Kataru screamed as he pushed his body to its limit. Suddenly, a set of claws sprouted from his arm and tore apart the leader wolf, whose body vanished in an instant. The rest of the wolves ran off in fear. Still in shock, Kataru examined the claws, which shattered into pieces as soon as he touched them. With no time to rest, he stood and went to search for the others. Suddenly, he heard Lucia screaming. Rushing to the scene, he found Lucia and Shizuru surrounded by monsters. As the creatures attacked, the two girls pulled weapons from their backpacks. Lucia had a katana, and Shizuru a pair of daggers. The two of them worked in sync to cut down the enemies one by one. Kataru tried to help, but his body wouldn't cooperate. Shizuru fell back to heal him while Lucia held the line. During the treatment, Shizuru explained that the monsters were controlled by Gaia, a group opposing Guardian. They were likely searching for the key that Nishi had mentioned. Once she was finished healing, Shizuru asked Kataru to find the others while she and Lucia handled the creatures. Trusting them, Kataru ran off into the night until he found Chihaya, who almost swung a tree branch at him, thinking he was a bear. Wasting no time, Kataru gathered them all and told the three to escape immediately. But then a massive monster appeared overhead. Kataru urged them to run, saying Shizuru and Lucia would be waiting outside. The monster lashed out with a tentacle toward Katori. Kataru intercepted it with his arm and told her to go. As the three ran, Kataru engaged the monster. The tentacle clung to his arm, sucking blood and dragging him. In pain, he struggled until his claws returned and sliced the tentacle off. Even with a weapon, Kataru couldn't withstand the monster's furious blows and soon began to lose strength. Then once again, the mysterious girl appeared and saved Kataru, cutting the monster in half with just one strike. She then approached him. Some fragmented memories of her killing him flashed through his mind, making Kataru panic and prepare to attack her, but Katori stopped him. Seeing that, the girl left. Without letting Kataru question how she was able to see the mysterious girl, Katori pulled him away to regroup with the others. However, the atmosphere had turned tense. Shizuru and Lucia were now confronting Senri and Chihaya. The reason was that when Senri and Chihaya's group had arrived earlier, the monsters had not attacked them, and they hadn't seemed frightened at all. Senri then revealed the truth: she was a member of Gaia, enemies of the Guardian Hunters. When Lucia charged forward, Sakuya appeared to support her. He said they were done here and took the two girls away. Kataru, exhausted, collapsed and passed out. The next day, he woke up in his house. When he arrived at school, all the girls had vanished and none of them answered his calls. His best friend noticed something was off and asked him, but Kataru kept it to himself. Just like that, everyone disappeared from his life. Days passed, and Jainao was still missing, the others still gone, and Kataru's life returned to being dull. One thing that puzzled him was why even Katori had stopped coming to school. Although he said nothing, Yoshino could tell something had happened and told him that if he ever needed help, just ask. Back home, Kataru began reflecting on his power. It seemed to be more than just physical enhancement. He concentrated and summoned the claws again, testing them out, finding they were extremely sharp. He began training with them. Suddenly, the mysterious girl appeared again. She said something about the situation being extremely urgent before collapsing. The next day, in class, the teacher announced that Jainao had been found. She was in the hospital in the neighboring town with hazy memory. Kataru figured her family would likely move away after this incident. While deep in thought, he met Shizuru again. She had come to say goodbye, likely for the last time. Then she vanished, and Kataru could do nothing but stand there and watch. He kept going to school and returning home alone. One night, he came home to find his belongings messed up and a red ribbon trailing up to his room. Upstairs, he encountered the mysterious girl again. She introduced herself as Kagari, and that was all she remembered. She had no memory beyond that, only that she had an important mission tied to Kataru. Simply put, she needed his help. The next morning, Kataru was woken up by Kagari biting his arm. He got ready for school. Since Kagari still didn't know who she was or what she needed to do, Kataru let her explore the internet and said they'd talk more after school. But when he got to class, Kagari had already shown up in a school uniform and was attending his class. She even picked a fight with Yoshino, so Kataru pulled her aside to talk. Kagari had already studied everything online and now wanted to attend school with him. She even had the ability to change her clothes at will. With no other option, Kataru showed her around the school. First stop, the cafeteria. Kagari wasn't interested in the food at all and just fixated on drinking coffee, even yelling at the staff for more, forcing Kataru to drag her away. They went to the park and, coincidentally, ran into Jainao. Surprisingly, she didn't remember anything. Kataru sat down with her and explained everything, but it still didn't bring her memory back. She then pulled a memory card from her pocket. It was likely the reason she came to find him. She gave it to him, saying it might be useful. Before they parted, Kataru reminded her of the game they had promised to play, saying she had won. Back at home, Kataru began exploring the contents of the memory card. Meanwhile, the two opposing factions were moving. Gaia, shockingly, was actually the Green Martel conglomerate. They held a meeting to choose their new saint. Afterward, Sanri met with Chihaya and a child. She reported the meeting's outcome and said both factions were now targeting Kataru. As for Katori, her whereabouts were unknown. On the Guardian side, Shizuru and Lucia had finally caught the monster responsible for the tragedy that destroyed Shizuru's family. After exacting their revenge, the two regrouped with Asaka and Nishi, having also eliminated the one who controlled the beast. The four of them discussed how Gaia was planning to send a large number of monsters into the city during the upcoming Harvest Festival. Sakuya had captured Penny and Gil because the two dared to ride birds and drop poop on Chihaya's head earlier, and now he needed them to atone for their mistake. As for the memory card, Jainao had discovered the truth about Gaia and believed the organization existed right in the heart of the Green City. The journalist also revealed that all supernatural events and dangers were caused by Gaia. While Kataru was watching this, Kagari jumped in, demanding to watch movies on the laptop, but was instead drawn in by the images in the files. Kataru then received a message from Katori after many days of silence. She said she had been sick and would return to school soon. Overjoyed, Kataru replied, unaware that Katori was actually building an army in the forest for some unknown purpose. On their day off, Kataru took Kagari shopping for clothes, but he didn't know that all three factions were watching him. First were the two trash creatures sent by Gaia, second was Katori's moth, and third was the red-haired man from Guardian. Kataru took Kagari to an antique shop to meet Asaka, but the man was no longer there. Kagari then turned to Kataru and told him they were being followed. Hearing that, Kataru realized and quickly dragged Kagari into an alley to shake off all three factions. He ran into Yoshino's gang, and after explaining the situation, Yoshino agreed to help. He even showed Kataru a shortcut to the next town. Before leaving, Kataru thanked him and told him about Katori's condition. Meanwhile, the three factions collided. Red Hair got beaten to a pulp by Moth and the two trash creatures, and then Yoshino's gang came in and hit him a few more times. Back with Kagari, Kataru had successfully escaped with her, but she started acting up from coffee withdrawal, clinging to him and making weird noises that drew public attention. He had to run to buy her coffee. At the vending machine, Kataru ran into Lucia again. He quickly asked if she was okay, but she was no longer the club president she once was. Lucia frankly told him that both Guardian and Gaia were monitoring him and Katori, and if neither of them showed anything unusual, the organizations would stop watching. After saying that, she walked away. After a day of wreaking havoc in the city, Kataru and Kagari rested in the park. After finishing her 10th can of coffee, Kataru brought Kagari home. Unexpectedly, the blonde guy from before showed up again, curious how Kataru had managed to kill his monster. Kataru kicked him by surprise, but the guy summoned two dogs to attack. However, Kagari instinctively destroyed them. Furious, the blonde decided to act personally, using his power to heat the surroundings. Just in time, Moth showed up and attacked. Kataru used the opportunity to grab Kagari and escape. Back home, before he could rest, Kataru found that someone had broken in. Kagari ran around nervously searching the house, but was relieved to find her online coffee delivery still safe. Kataru found that Penny and Gil had broken in and locked them up to interrogate them. When they refused to talk, he shook a box to torment them. At that moment, Moth appeared again, and Katori called Kataru. She wanted him to meet her in the forest. Kotori had been watching him through Moth's eyes, and after learning that both Guardian and Gaia were targeting him, she decided it was time to tell him the truth. Kotoru and Kagari followed Moth into the forest. They arrived at a strange place, and Kotori suddenly appeared from a portal and pulled them in. Inside was a secret base, full of creatures building something. Kagari felt the place was familiar, and Kotori confirmed it should be this was where Kagari was born. Kotori admitted she had always seen Kagari, but never said anything. Overjoyed that Kotori knew about her, Kagari smiled, even telling Kotoru to go home because he was no longer needed. They all sat down, and Kotori explained that all the creatures there had been created by her. She had built the space to protect the key, but she wasn't part of Guardian or Gaia. She called her group the Druids. She told Kotoru a story about a person who once controlled monsters and sealed their knowledge within a mistletoe tree, leaving it for future generations to use that power correctly. 10 years ago, Kotori's family was in a traffic accident. Her parents died. Scared, Kotori wandered into the forest and encountered the mistletoe tree, which gave her knowledge and turned her into a druid. And her mission since then has been to protect the key, or more precisely, Kagari is the key. Kotori added that Gaia and Guardian were still fighting over Kagari, and although both factions shared the same goal of protecting the Earth, she led Kotoru to the mistletoe tree, where this light represented the Earth's energy. Kagari was born here in human form, and Kotori also relied on this energy to control monsters normally. An ordinary person would need to use their lifespan to do so. At that moment, Kagari heard a song, which came from the Martel Corporation, where Senri and the leader were listening to a symphony. After the performance ended, both Gaia and Guardian began preparing for their final battle. Meanwhile, the two trash creatures had escaped their cage and reported the location to Sakuya. The very next day, he arrived not to start a fight or capture Kagari, but to offer his help in protecting the key. Sakuya had been ordered by Senri to monitor Kotoru and his activities, so essentially, he came to act as a butler. Hearing that, Kotoru asked him to train him in combat. The man agreed but warned that it would be harsh. In the following days, Sakuya handled cleaning, cooking, and spent time training Kotoru, who did nothing but train repeatedly under Kagari's watchful eyes. One day, Kotori announced they were out of food since she had only stocked supplies for herself and Kagari. Sakuya suggested they go shopping since the Harvest Festival had just begun, and so far, neither Gaia nor Guardian had made any moves. After finishing their shopping, Sakuya brought Kotoru and Kagari to meet Senri again. She revealed that she had become the Holy Maiden of the Martel Corporation, which publicly presented itself as an environmental organization but was in fact waging a war over the key. Today, she wanted to meet Kagari and ask why the Earth had taken human form to appear before mankind. Kagari simply replied that she was trying to rediscover herself, then offered Senri a can of coffee, saying that after living here for a while, she found humans to be truly fascinating. Hearing this, Senri promised to help Kotoru as much as she could, then began to leave, but Kotoru stopped her, reminding her of the deal they made, that he'd get to touch her chest. With Kagari present, proving the supernatural was real, he tossed her a coffee can to distract her and pinned Senri to the wall. But he stopped just before doing anything, saying he'd save it for when they met again at school. Meanwhile, in the forest, the blonde man had discovered the secret base through Pani and Gil. Inside, Kotoru was still training. Over with Guardian, Lucia had secretly entered the forest to search for Kotori after seeing a report that someone had spotted her. She stumbled upon the blonde man's group planning an attack and overheard them talking about the key being there. Considering the situation, Lucia prioritized protecting the key, but recalling memories with Kotoru and the others, she ultimately decided to protect her friends. She swiftly took down two enemies, but the blonde man launched a surprise lava attack. He then created a burning battlefield. Realizing the fire would soon spread, Lucia tried to end the fight quickly. She used a poison that withered the surrounding area to suppress the flames, then launched a poisonous strike that caused the man to bleed. But he resisted, unleashed a power burst, and impaled her with a fiery spear. Over with Gaia, Senri had made her decision. She would let Chihaya leave the organization to find Kotoru. Before leaving, she gave Chihaya a letter to hand to Kotoru. She would take care of the rest. The very next morning, Chihaya set out to find Kotori's base, using a map. Along the way, she stumbled upon a severely injured Lucia. While unsure what to do, she encountered Kotori and Kotoru. The three brought Lucia back to the base for treatment. Kotori copied Shizuru's healing power, but the bleeding wouldn't stop. Kagari then suggested using her ribbon to wrap the wounds, and surprisingly, this simple method worked better than powers. Later, Lucia regained consciousness and reunited with everyone. She was relieved that everyone was okay, and when Kotoru introduced her to Kagari, saying she was his friend, it filled Lucia with happiness. Sakuya had also returned after reinforcing their defenses. On Sanri's side, she began to inherit the memories of the previous holy maiden, her grandmother. She then received news that her grandmother had been hospitalized. Meanwhile, within Guardian, Shizuru kept Lucia's location a secret. Back with Sanri, after visiting her grandmother, she encountered the blonde man again. He reported everything and revealed that Lucia's poison was still killing him slowly. Seeing this, Sanri granted him new power, offering him a monster to command on the condition that he ensures the key remains intact. He immediately agreed, as his main target was Kotoru. At this time, Kotoru was still training. After finishing, exhausted, he went to take a bath, but ended up bumping into the girls and got thrown out by Kagari. After bathing, they all sat together, and Kotoru asked why Gaia and Guardian were fighting if their goals were the same. The answer was simple. Gaia wanted to wipe out humanity to restore the planet, while Guardian aimed to protect the world humans had built. Druid existed to protect the key until it made its judgment. Kotoru asked what each side would do if they obtained the key. Gaia would guard it until the judgment occurred, while Guardian wanted to destroy the key to ensure humanity's safety. That night, as everyone slept, Kotoru talked with Kagari, asking whether humanity was so useless that the Earth had to take form and judge them. She agreed that humans were foolish and always drained resources, but she couldn't make a decision based solely on that. There were still good aspects of humanity, which she saw through Kotoru, giving her reason to reconsider and make a more thoughtful judgment. On the final day of the Harvest Festival, all the factions began to move, having tracked Kagari's location and prepared to invade the forest. The blonde man struck first, bringing his dinosaur monster to smash through the barrier and storm the base. Knowing they couldn't defeat him yet, Kotori released all the creatures to stall him while the others escaped. Even sending out Groot-like creatures didn't help. His monster killed them quickly, and his fire power only made it worse. Still, Kotori urged everyone to flee, revealing she had one more card to play. Her parents, who had died 10 years ago, recreated to help delay the attacker. Meanwhile, the Guardian faction moved in, keeping Shizuru in the car as a trump card. Back with the fleeing group, Kotori tried to smile to reassure everyone, but her tears wouldn't stop. Kotoru apologized to her for being too insensitive before and failing to see her feelings, but before they could talk further, the blonde man returned. He used fire to separate Kotoru and Kagari from the others. Kotoru told everyone to escape while he handled the enemy. Kagari remained silent, staring into the distance. The blonde man charged at Kotoru, and although he had been trained by Sakuya, Kotoru was quickly overwhelmed. Just as the blonde man had the upper hand, Lucia's poison flared up in his body, allowing Kotoru to land a strike. Furious, the man summoned his dinosaur to bite Kotoru, but then the Guardian team arrived, those same people from the late-night ramen shop. However, upon seeing the key, they turned their attack on Kagari. At that moment, the blonde man kept his promise to Sanri. He used his dinosaur to protect Kagari and create an escape path for them. But one man couldn't fight off 7, and with Lucia's poison still weakening him, he finally fell in battle. Kotoru, wounded, ran to Kagari and asked what she was really searching for. She simply kept staring in one direction. Kotoru collapsed from exhaustion, but someone began healing him. It was Shizuru, who had decided to stand with her friends. Kotoru passed out, and when he awoke, everyone had reunited. He had been brought to a stone city, a Gaia branch location. And as always, Kagari continued staring into the distance. On Senri's side, she asked her grandmother why she was so obsessed with wiping out humanity. Her grandmother said it was because previous holy maidens had lost faith in mankind, something that accumulated over generations. When chosen as a holy maiden, one would inherit all their memories and eventually be controlled by them, without even a single happy memory to offset it. But Senri believed she had found happiness. Her grandmother said she'd wait to see how long that would last, then took her to witness the end of humanity. Meanwhile, back with Kotoru, Kagari, after standing still for a while, finally spoke. It was unfortunate that she couldn't find even a single good memory about humanity. Then she screamed in pain, and the stone city was pulled to the surface. The mistletoe tree had grown up to the edge of the sky, and monsters inside the city began pouring out, slaughtering humans. In the days that followed, it was a true catastrophe for humanity. Disasters broke out across the world, factions kept fighting each other, and there was nothing but bloodshed and ruin. On one particularly chaotic day, Kotaru carried Katori to the rooftop of a building so she could see the world after Kagari's judgment. A giant monster appeared, shaking the heavens and earth just as Kagari woke up again. This time, she had returned to normal, saying there had been a song bothering her for days and it seemed to have finally stopped. Kotaru was relieved she was okay, but Asaka appeared his intent to kill Kagari was clear. Kotaru knew how strong he was and had no choice but to use his rewrite power, ignoring Sakuya's warning that overuse would strip him of his humanity. He accelerated his body tenfold to fight Asaka, rewriting his cells every time he was hit, to the point that even his wounds no longer bled. Seeing Kotaru pushing beyond human limits, Asaka decided to take him down before he became a monster. But Shizuru arrived on a motorcycle and dragged Asaka away to fight elsewhere she had chosen to protect her friend. Meanwhile, Kotaru's body began transforming into a tree. Kagari now understood why she had been drawn to him. It was because her cells were inside him. It turned out the girl in Kotaru's old memories was Katori, who had witnessed Kagari attacking him and didn't know why he was there. Worried, Katori had begged Kagari to help and was given a red ribbon to heal him and save his life. But now there was no way to save him. Kagari's power had grown too much after so many rewrites. Kotaru's human body could no longer contain it. Yet if that power was removed, Kotaru would still die, because it was the very thing keeping him alive. At that moment, Pani and Gil finally served their purpose. If they could patch the wound and replace the power in Kotaru's body, he could survive. After all, they had shared so many joyful times together. Kagari then pulled out her ribbon and placed the two creatures into Kotaru, helping him regain consciousness. Katori kept quiet about Pani and Gil's sacrifice, but before they could do anything else, Kagari heard that song again, which drove her to unleash more destruction. Kotaru's arm suddenly grew into a tree. Sanri had been possessed to continue the Song of Annihilation, using it to manipulate Kagari into destroying more. Kagari then began turning into a tree herself. Kotaru, dragging his battered body, struggled to pull her out. Miraculously, he awakened her by grabbing her boobs. But even though she regained consciousness, the world had already fallen to the brink of extinction. Everyone else slowly disappeared from the world, with no exceptions. Chihaya, Lucia, Shizuru, and Katori all faded away. In the end, only Kotaru and Kagari remained. As Kotaru watched his friends vanish, Kagari said one final thing before turning into a tree. She believed he would save everyone. And with that, one branch of the story quietly ended in tears.